Hey guys, welcome to this Monday night's Excavate. We're all here gathered, some of the Vanguard students and we just want to worship with you wherever you're at. And yeah, let's just start off with the word of prayer and we'll get to worship you. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time in which we've gathered all here tonight to praise you, Lord, to worship you with one soul, one heart, because you deserve it. You deserve our worship, you deserve our praise, despite everything that's going on right now, unplanned circumstances, and though we may be feeling a bit lost, a bit depressed, a bit sad, we pray that you let us know that you're still with us in the midst of the darkness, Lord. Thank you for this. We offer you this time of worship. In Jesus' name.
Jesus. All hail the Lord of heaven and earth. All hail Jesus. All hail the Savior. Come on, sing it out. All hail. All hail Jesus. All hail.
All right, hello Vanguard. I am going to be speaking for you for Excavate, and I figured, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to take you all on a walk with me. So we're going to the park. So wait for me to get there. This is Arizona, by the way. Welcome to Arizona. It's actually been really nice here. As I'm walking there, if you guys need more chapel credit, you all should check out the Legacy Church Zoom small group. It's been really fun. Last time we cut Kellen's hair, my friend Kellen. He cut his hair and I told him they should dye his hair next time. So, you know, you never know what you're gonna find when you tune in. There's too many people. I wanna go be alone. I'm gonna look like a mad woman. I feel like I already do. Okay, I found a spot, but there's a man who wants to walk his dog. He's gonna hear about Jesus. Ooh, let's get the things out of my bag. The man is almost gone. All right, it's me at the park with my notes and my Bible, and we're gonna begin. So, as I was prepping for this message, it was funny because I was looking back at my old Bible, like the old Bible that I used to have when I was like 12. And I remember, because my mom, okay, it's this Bible. My mom gave me this Bible. It's a women's devotional Bible. And of course I put the beautiful little gem up there. And it was hilarious because I was like, okay, I'm gonna read the whole Bible. I'm gonna do it, right? And I decided I was gonna highlight everything that was important so that when I read through it the second time, I could just know what to read. So I would like leave out all the little things. But then I ended up highlighting like almost everything. And just to give you a little proof here, this is how much I highlighted. Pages upon pages in Genesis. And then I eventually stopped, and I just think it's hilarious. Little baby Sarah, I wanted to know, you know? I wanted to see what was true, and so I thought that speed reading the Bible and then being able to read back again was the way to go, but looking back through this, it just reminded me so much of the hunger that I had to know what was true, to be able to figure out truth and to live by it, because I remember I even had this little notebook that I had, because I was like, I don't always know what's true. Like, how do I know what's true? And then I remember I was learning geometry, and they always told you, like, start with the base assumption, and then you can build off of that to know, like, the one thing that you know is true, and then you can build off of that. So I had this little notebook that I wrote down, and I was like, I know that this one thing is true, and so I'm gonna fill up this notebook with it. I never filled it up, but it's interesting in the passage that we're going to talk about. It's 2 Corinthians 11, and Paul is basically saying that the Corinthians have been taken captive by the persuasion of these false apostles. And so I'm going to read it for you, and then I'm going to jump into the stuff that I studied and what I hope to share with you guys today. So, all right, here we go. 2 Corinthians 11. I'm reading from the ESV. I wish you would bear with me in a little foolishness. Do bear with me, for I feel a divine jealousy for you, since I betrothed you to one husband, to present you as a pure virgin to Christ. But I am afraid that as the serpent deceived Eve by his cunning, your thoughts will be led astray from a sincere and pure devotion to Christ. For if someone comes and proclaims another Jesus than the one we proclaimed, or if you receive a different spirit from the one you received, or if you accept a different gospel from the one you accepted, you put up with it readily enough. Indeed, I consider that I am not in the least inferior to these superior apostles. Had to pause for wind, be back in a second. Even if I am unskilled in speaking, I am not so in knowledge. Indeed, in every way, Indeed, in every way, we have made this plain to you in all things. Or did I commit a sin by humbling myself so that you might be exalted, because I preached God's gospel to you free of charge? I robbed other churches by accepting support from them in order to serve you. When I was with you and was in need, I did not burden anyone, for the brothers who came from Macedonia supplied my need. So I refrained and will refrain from burdening you in any way. As the truth of Christ is in me, this boasting of mine will not be silenced in the regions of I don't know how to say the word. maybe? Okay. And why? Because I do not love you? God knows I do. And what I am doing, I will continue to do so. I will continue to do, in order to undermine the claim that those who would like to claim that in their boasted mission they work on the same terms as we do. For such men are false apostles, deceitful workmen, distinguishing themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So it is no surprise that his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness. Their end will correspond to their deeds. I repeat, let no one think me foolish, but even if you do, accept me as a fool, so that I too may boast a little. What am I saying with this boastful confidence? I say not as the Lord would, but as a fool, since many boast according to the flesh. I too will boast, for you gladly bear with fools, being wise yourself. For you bear it if someone makes a slave of you, or devours you, or takes advantage of you, or puts on airs, or strikes you in the face. To my shame, I must say, we were too weak for that. But whatever anyone else dares to boast, I am speaking as a fool, I also dare to boast that. Are they Hebrew? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they offspring of Abraham? So am I. Are they servants of Christ? I am a better one. I'm talking like a madman, with far greater labors, far more imprisonments, with countless beatings, and often near death. 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews 40 lashes less one. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I was adrift at sea, on frequent journeys, in danger of river, from robbers, danger from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from my false brothers, in toil and hardship, through many sleepless nights, a hunger and thirst, often without food, in cold and exposure, and apart from other things, there is a daily pressure on me of the anxiety for all the churches. Who is weak, and I am not weak? Who is made to fall, and I am not indignant? If I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. The God and Father of our Lord Jesus, who is blessed forever, knows that I am not lying. Alright, so I'm going to pray really quick and then jump into my message. So, Jesus, I just ask that you would come and you would speak through me. I ask that I would speak as, you would guard my mouth from speaking anything that's not true, God. My heart is to glorify you and to bring you praise, and so I ask that the people listening, that they would be able to hear what I have to say, and that your Holy Spirit would move in their hearts, and that you would speak to them through me, God, because ultimately they need to hear from you, not from me. So I just ask all these things in your name. All right. What's happening in this passage is it's kind of an interesting section. I know we've been going through 2 Corinthians, but what's happening is that Paul is writing about the fact that there are these false apostles that are influencing the church in Corinth. And he's basically trying to persuade them that he is not someone that's deceitful, that he is someone that the 2 Corinthians can trust, as they had been doing, and that these people that call themselves apostles are actually manipulating them. They were boasting about themselves, and so in this passage, Paul almost flips it on them. There's a lot of sarcasm, and he does these little things where he's like, oh, well, I'm too weak for that, or let me be foolish for a little bit, kind of almost jabbing at these false apostles, as they've said. They've been boasting about themselves, and they want to be treated on the same basis as Paul has been treated. So they're trying to put themselves at equal place as Paul in the 2 Corinthians mind, the Corinthians mind, and he uses all these little devices to be able to flip back on them, even at the end where he's saying, oh, I was too weak to boast, but if I'm going to boast, let me boast, because I can tell you that I have gone through all these different things and suffered for you, yet I won't, because I would rather boast in the places that I'm weak, and let you understand that I have the authority in your life without me having to rule it over you. To give some sort of context with how big this was for Paul, he gives this imagery in the very first part of the chapter where he's talking about how he feels as though the church is like a betrothed virgin, like he's betrothed them to Christ, and he has to do his duty to protect them as a father would to a young bride, to protect them from someone trying to take advantage of them. So that's kind of how he paints this picture of these false apostles that are coming at that they're trying to persuade the Corinthians that they are better than Paul, or that they should be at least in the same level. One of the cool cultural contexts that I think I was reminded of when reading this passage, and even as I was studying for it, is just how important marriage was in that time. I took one of Dr. Westbrook's classes called Women in Early Israel, and that class literally changed my life. If you need a class and you want to take a religion class, I mean, Doctrum is great. Everyone should take a class from Doctrum too. But Dr. Westbrook is so underrated. I think she's one of the smartest women I have ever met, and I respect her deeply. And so I was in her class, and she was talking about how in that time the culture for women was so different, and this idea of marriage was such a huge idea because that was all a woman had, and that's how she had status. She had no status apart from her marriage. And it was just their whole society, especially for a woman, the only way that you could be have security in life even was by getting married. And even then, you were never seen as on the same level as a man. You were always seen as almost property, as something that was to be had for wealth. So with that all in mind, like, he's using a very, very specific cultural way of thinking when he's saying, like, this, we think of marriage this huge, and we will do all these different things to get the best match for our family and our kind of our group of people, and in that way, in that protectiveness, I feel that protection for you, because as a father would be for a bride, wanting to protect her from someone wanting to steal that part of her the way that they saw women back then, I want to protect you in that way. And it's super interesting as you continue to go through the passage, looking at what these apostles were saying about Paul. One of the things that they were saying is that he was speaking badly, in the sense of, like, they're saying he doesn't speak at the same level as us, he's obviously not this professional guy. They also said that because he wouldn't accept money, and so Paul is responding saying, hey, I may not have had this wealthy training that maybe these other people have, but I definitely come from a place of knowledge. And he's not even a bad speaker, and we know that from how he wrote. He was coming to them and saying, basically, you know that I'm not a bad speaker in the first place, and then secondly, I am speaking out of a place of knowledge. You know that I know what I'm talking about, so why would you want to discredit me for something when I'm speaking the truth? Additionally, when they were talking about this money thing, culturally, it would have been acceptable for Paul to want to ask money from the Corinthians to be able to pay his way. Yet, because he wasn't doing that, these false apostles were telling the Corinthians, oh, he's clearly, like, he's not even a professional, that he wants to take money from you. Like, why would you trust him if he is not even gonna be, like, professional about it? Another part about that is that they were taking money from the Corinthians, and so they wanted to be put on the same level as Paul by trying to pressure him in almost to taking money from them. And he counters that with saying, I am not going to take money from you. I worked hard and I accepted from even other churches because I didn't want to be a burden on you, and that was a sign of me loving you rather than trying to appear different than trustworthy, if that makes sense. So one of the biggest parts of this whole passage is we just get to see how Paul uses his authority. And I think that, at least for me, when I think of authority, often that can be a twisted version of authority, especially spiritual authority. So he basically, in this passage, is using his spiritual authority, and I think for me that's one of the hardest things to understand, just because I've seen so much bad authority in my life. You know, when I was in middle school, my family was a part of a church, and we were a part of it for 2 years. It was a small startup church, and we were super close. I was super close with the pastor's daughter. She was my best friend, and we did everything together. And one summer it was weird because all of a sudden everything, like the communication got weird and we stopped hearing a lot from them, and it came out that the pastor was having an affair, and then that him and his wife were gonna get divorced. And so for my friend and I, that was devastating because I'm just a baby new Christian. You know, this guy, he baptized my sister. He was a part of my life for a long time, and I went to his youth group, and he basically like stabbed everyone in the back and left, and then still continued to say he was a pastor, which is horrible. And for me, that just drove me to this place of how do I know what's true? How do I know, how does this thing even work? Because if we're told to be a part of church, how are we supposed to do it when people can be so corrupt? And so, like, people should never go through what my family went through. People should never experience that kind of a pain, to be able to see their best friend walk away from the faith because her dad literally cheated on his wife and left them. That's just not something that should happen. And so this idea of authority, for me personally, it's difficult because I've had these experiences where it's just been abused, you know? But at the same time, it's passages like this and seeing how it's supposed to be that give me hope for the church. And that's why I still want to be involved in church, and I want to be able to be a place of healthy interaction in the church, rather than this emotionally unhealthy, manipulative version of what it's supposed to be. You know, the church is meant to be a place of light, a place of health and wholeness, and a place where God's presence is just shown to the world. And that's beautiful. And so it just makes me so upset when I see it being done poorly. All that to say, Paul in this passage shows so much good spiritual authority and leadership. The way that Paul uses his authority in this passage is just beautiful, because he contrasts himself with these false apostles and is saying, look at them, how they're boasting, how they're trying to manipulate you into respecting them. I don't need to do that. I'm not going to do that. Whereas he even goes through, like, I've done all these things. I could boast in the fact that I've suffered the most for the churches, yet I won't boast in anything, but I will boast in my weakness, in the areas where God gets to work through me the most. And it's just this flip on even what we think in the world of traditional leadership, of being able to do all these shows of power and to gain respect from people, when that's not how it's done. And that's not true authority. One of the commentaries I was reading said, spiritual authority, unlike secular authority, is not rooted in position. An officer in the army or the president of a corporation has authority by virtue of his or her office. Spiritual authority, however, even though it may be associated with an office in the church or one's position as a parent, is actually rooted in one's gift. Paul relied on the authority the Lord gave me, and he says that in chapter 13, and he's dealing with the Corinthians. So he even says in other parts of this whole book, he's saying, I want to lower myself to elevate you. And he puts himself in a place to build them up as he walks beside them. And he basically said that his authority to be able to speak in their life was given by Christ, and he feels called to do that, and that the Lord will authenticate it, will show that that's actually, that he'll validate it for them, in a sense, that he doesn't need to prove it himself. He's going to follow his convictions. He's going to be listening to the Holy Spirit and speak what he knows is true to them. But ultimately, that authority, he doesn't have to fight for it. He doesn't have to do this show of power to get it. He doesn't have to manipulate or control or try and make the Corinthians feel bad. He is just speaking truth to them in such a loving and gentle way, while he's also using all this sarcasm. He's being a little bit more forceful here, but ultimately it's gentle. He could be tearing them apart, but he's writing them a letter and saying, I care about you. I really want you to understand that these people don't have your best intentions in mind, and they should not be respected. Okay, I had to pause because there's a lady with a really cute dog, and I can't show you, but there's a Chihuahua and a Cocker Spaniel, and I want to pet them, and I can't. Plus a Rona is gonna get me. The Chihuahua even looks like the Rona Chihuahua. Okay, another good quote from the commentary. The fact of authority does not admit the right of the leader to lead, but it denies the right of the leader to control. Instead, the leader's influence flows from his or her gift, the fact that Christ is speaking through this person, and it flows from the example of the leader. The example the leader gives as a person who has experienced significant growth and transformation. And I just think that's such a beautiful picture of authority. And I know Doctor has spoken on it a lot, and even Dr. Westbrook, just that in our society and culture, there's such a power play, even in churches where we've modeled this business mentality where there's the head pastor on top and then everyone else is underneath them. And that's not necessarily the biblical example of power and authority in people's lives. And what Paul is doing is he's showing such humility by coming to them as a servant and wanting to serve them and even make himself lower to build them up. That's his whole goal, is to make them healthy and to help them be spiritually empowered and not be manipulated by these people as they try and discern what's even true. So what can we learn from this? When I was reading it, I feel like there's two different type of people that I want to speak to. And the first one is someone that is really secure in their relationship with God, and they know who they are in Christ, but maybe they don't have the church relationships that would most build them up. And maybe that's a fear of authority or something like that. And so I just wanted to ask you two questions. First off is, how can you be like Paul in someone's life? Do you fight for people? Do you fight for your friends in the same way that Paul is fighting for the Corinthians? He's able to speak to them in a way that is so loving, yet so firm in what he knows that they need to hear. And if you have friendships that are just this shallow and you can't actually tell people when they're making a mistake, we're doing a disservice to each other by not telling each other when we think the other person's making a mistake, and we're not being honest about what we think and feel. And there's a grace and a gentleness and a security that we need to have in these relationships to be able to speak these things. But then also, you need other people in your life that can speak that way. You need people that have authority in your life, that you've given permission, saying, hey, like, I need someone to tell me when I'm making a mistake. I need someone to go to that I respect. I respect their, the way that they live their life, and I want to live under that leadership. Also, just a side note though, be really intentional with who you choose, because not everyone is able to take on that weight. It takes a lot of discipline and a lot of spiritual growth to be able to do that well. Is one of the things that I've learned about myself is that I feel the most like myself in an odd way when I have a spiritual authority over me, when I have a pastor that I trust, that I know I can come to and ask questions. I know that they are spending time in the Word. I know that they are being a healthy individual, and maybe they don't have everything right, but I can trust them. It just transforms your life when you have that. I really do feel that way. So I would really encourage all of you who are watching this to find someone in your life that you respect in that way. Maybe it's someone that's on the same age level as you, maybe it's someone older. You need people in your life that you respect, that you can open up to. Another side note on that is just even being involved in a church at all. You know, I think for Vanguard, in a way, we have to listen to these things. We have to go to chapel, and that's great, but it really can't replace church. You know, I just got involved, I've been going to Legacy Church for a little over a year, and it's been amazing to be able to be a part of a community where I feel understood. I don't feel like I have to change who I am, in the sense of like, I can come to them just as I am, and I know that they're gonna love me and accept me, but also call me to more, because I want to grow, I want to change. And so it may be difficult to find a church where you feel safe and where you feel connected, but ultimately that's such a valuable thing, and I think it's so undervalued. And lastly, I just wanted to speak to the person that maybe, like me, has gone through a lot of just almost spiritual abuse, where people have been so crappy to you. You know, maybe you had a situation like me where a pastor just treated you horribly or did not respect you in the way that you needed to be respected, or spoke something out against you that was insulting or hurtful and just didn't go about things the right way. And I just want to say to you, first off, I'm so sorry. That truly sucks, and I can't change it. I can't fix that for you. But for me in my own life, I know that I value so much of what it's meant to be. I can't give up on what the church is supposed to be. The church is supposed to be a beautiful picture of Jesus in the world. We're meant to be influencing the world, being showing people that God's heart for them is good, and that he wants to renew and redeem and restore. God has not given up on his church. God has not given up on the church, and he's still moving. And so even though it's imperfect, God is there, and there's nothing that can replace that. And so I know that you may be hurting, but we need the church. We need it. There's nothing that can replace it. And so while it may be painful, and I would encourage you, try coming back and have a dialogue with God about that, as he wants to show you who he is, and he wants to turn these bad experiences in your life into a place of healing and hope. I hope that you can understand that the church is so much better than what we give it credit for, and you can find a healthy place to be. Yeah. I feel like when I was young and highlighting all these verses in my Bible, I related so much to the Corinthians, and just not knowing, or just having a lot of stuff, you know, and not knowing how to find truth, yet having been told the gospel and just working things out. I sought after the Lord, and he found me, and I found him. And I feel like in these moments were the sweetest times, because I have these memories of just being so in love with God, so close to him during that time in my life. And it was so precious to me, being able to feel that close, because it was just a fresh revelation. I hope that as you maybe are searching or trying to find what's true, I feel like it's a journey we're all on, that you can just be reminded, one, that God is so seeking after you. He's just waiting to be able to meet with you. I would encourage you, please search for truth. Ask God, have dialogue with him. He wants to be found. He wants you to find him and to know who he is. He's not hiding from you. That's my encouragement to you. I hope that you have just an amazing time at home in quarantine. I don't know how long it's gonna last, honestly. It's wild. I hope that this Easter was a beautiful time for you and your family, and that you can just remember how much God is for you and he loves you. So, bye! I'm gonna walk back home now. I'm gonna walk back to my house and meet my dog. Maybe I can be a vlogger. Or maybe I'm just entirely cringy.